Greetings everyone and welcome to BrickCats. Today I'm reviewing this amazing Republic dropship designed by ForgedInLEGO. As always, liking this review, subscribing to my channel, or leaving a comment are all great ways to support what I do, and thank you very much in advance for your support. Without any substitutions, in mid-November 2025 I was getting 5 stores and $141 without shipping and tax, or about $181 with shipping and tax. In my reviews I offer my opinions on aesthetics and model features, parts issues you might want to look out for, the build experience, the model's integrity, and last but not least I offer my closing thoughts on the model in the conclusion. If you're watching this review, I assume you bought the instructions or are interested in buying them. I also assume a basic level of familiarity with Brickling's ordering system and LEGO nomenclature. My disclaimer on this and all my mock reviews is that I only use genuine LEGO bricks and I always purchase the instructions. Lastly, I create these reviews for my own personal enjoyment and in the hopes that my advice will make your experience more enjoyable and or less expensive. ForgedInLEGO's dropship measures 17 inches long, without including the cannons, and it's about 20 inches with the cannons. It's about 9 inches tall, or 10 with the handle up, and about 21 inches wide. The nose in general is well shaped, and I always appreciate when designers include this little strip of gray or sometimes black in the middle here. The cockpit seats the pilot, and there's a simple seat and a printed slope in there for some controls. The Republic insignia is more or less in the right spot, and I think this light bluish gray tile is representing the crew door. Moving up the fuselage, there's some variation in the stud and color pattern. I think there's a case here to use 2 hoses over the top here, but that's fairly easy to do and add in if you want to, albeit it could be a little bit pricey. And there's some nice representation of the various piping you can see along the sides here. In what I'll call display mode, the handle and the mechanism for opening the wings is integrated pretty well. These little pins are a little unfortunate in blue, although they do come in black, so you could substitute those if you wanted to. And the variant without the friction ridges comes in white as well, so that's another substitution you can consider. There seem to be a couple of variants of the dropship, some of which have this little structure at the top while others don't, depending on your source. Either way, the section is built very solidly, and most importantly it doesn't get in the way of the handle feature. Now with the handle in what I call play mode, I find the trigger to be just a little bit too far for my hands, but obviously this is a personal thing. It's still not difficult, but maybe just a little bit awkward depending on how large or small your hands are. And engaging the trigger mechanism opens and shuts. I'll show this a little bit better later in the video, but it opens and shuts the representation of the magnetic clamps and the attachment mechanism. So here is the attachment mechanism from the other side. And if I engage it, you can see that the range of motion on the attachment mechanism that's actually pretty small. And it's just enough to clear the width of the Technic axles on the vehicle you're carrying. And I actually think this is an okay thing. Any wider and it might get hard to land at the exposed Technic pins right here, and those are the things that actually connect to the vehicle. So we're going to try and pick up this ATTE here, and what you're aiming for is this Technic pin right here to insert the tan Technic pin on the dropship, and the same on the other side. Let's see if I can get the camera angle here okay. Pretty hard to get a good angle here, but we come in, open up the mechanism, one of them's in, and kind of just shake it, and then you pick it up, like so. Now this might look a little more difficult than it actually is, and when I first saw how this was supposed to work in person, I was actually a little bit skeptical. Getting those 2 Technic pins into 2 specific Technic holes shouldn't be as easy as this is, but somehow it works. And after a few tries, it's actually pretty easy. Generally, as long as you can get one in, you can kind of just shake the model and get the other one in, and it's really not too big of a deal. Similarly, releasing it is very easy. Maybe we can try again. So I've got the one closest to the camera, you just give it a shake, and you're fine. So this is by far the best integrated play feature in terms of smoothness and implementation in a mock that I think I've ever reviewed. So this is really an awesome play feature. And you can do it one-handed, obviously. To either side of the handle, the engines are looking good, transitioning smoothly into the massive wings, which do a great job recreating the color pattern with simple plate and tile building. I really like this one small area here, in which the engine covers up part of the dark blue tile, or dark blue edge rather, to recreate that section of the wing color scheme accurately. Moving to the rear of the ship, we've got the engine vents represented by some dark bluish gray slopes, as well as the rear turret, which is on a ball joint, so it does have a fairly wide range of motion. I definitely think this red socket element should be a different color, and actually I'm just noticing that mine has a crack, I think. Ooh, yeah, that's pretty bad. Oh well. Flipping the model over, we can get a good look at the attachment mechanism as well as the representation of the magnetic cups, or the latches and cannon attached to the various vehicles the dropship is carrying. These magnetic cups seem well sized to me, and they're big enough that they cover up the actual attachment mechanism arms quite well. And along with being on the underside of the dropship, I really don't notice the attachment arms at all, and this is so well integrated that it was actually kind of difficult for me to see how the mechanism worked from the initial videos, so I think this is, again, really well done here. And there's nothing particularly special about the underside, and adding more detail here in my opinion would just add cost for little gain. No one's going to see this section, so this is kind of a non-issue for me, just how blocky this is here. In summary, this dropship looks really good and the play feature is extremely well integrated. I get the cachet associated with owning the official set, but this mock is better in basically every way. The dropship requires 286 elements and 1,325 pieces. I found a number of ways to improve efficiency with the parts list or correct some minor subjective issues. The 4 Technic Slope 6x1 by 1 2/3 part 2744 in blue are very uncommon in this color. These are hidden and the color doesn't matter, so I recommend changing the color of these to non-applicable in the parts list. The parts list calls for 1 Technic Axle Connector 2x3 with ball joint socket, open sides, angled forks with closed axle holes, part 32174 in red, and this is the rear cannon connector. In my opinion, this is an odd color choice, as I kind of showed you. This piece is very visible, so while red is fairly common, the black and dark bluish gray variants are even more common, and they won't stick out as much. You're going to want to add 2 2x4 bricks part 3001 in any color to your parts list for reasons I'll explain in the build experience section. You could keep it simple and increase the quantity of 2x4 bricks in dark bluish gray from 10 to 12, as those are very inexpensive. The 2-tile round 2x2 with Star Wars Republic pattern part 4150PS6 can be rather expensive, and in my search results I usually had it between $1.50 and $2.50. This is a very useful tile to have anyway, and I personally prefer the printed pieces, but if you're looking to minimize costs, I would go with the sticker version, part 4150PB002B in white. The yellow 15L Technic lift arm, part 32278 is hidden and can be any color. And finally, the hose flexible ribbed with 8mm ends 19L, part 57539 in black can be quite expensive, and sometimes it was in excess of $5 in my search results. I think that flat silver is more accurate anyways, and if you really wanted to go crazy you could buy 2 of them, because there's definitely 2 sections to whatever pipe section this is. I stuck with 1 in flat silver in my pricing research, but I already had a black one, so that's why you see black here. As usual, I use the Brick Hunter extension to check the entire parts list against the Pick-a-Brick inventory. I do have an affiliate link that gives me a small percentage of the value of your purchase, so thank you in advance if you choose to use it. Pick-a-Brick orders over $35 ship for free, and if you spend more than $14 in the bestseller or standard categories, the handling fees are waived. I'll go over those results in the conclusion. Instructions for the Republic dropship contain 535 steps, with each part or sub-assembly added in each step outlined in red against a white background. This color scheme works well for a build that doesn't have many raid pieces at all, and I didn't have any trouble determining where the pieces were going. Each step has you adding a reasonable number of pieces, so the build goes at a pretty good pace. It didn't feel overly slow, nor are you constantly turning pages. The build took me about 10 hours total with pre-sorting into the major categories, with some caveats that I'll talk about. The designer does include some helpful notes on alignment of certain sub-assemblies when this actually matters. I always appreciate this because getting to the end of the build and realizing you've got a critical section misaligned is a huge bummer, so very nice on those. While the vast majority of the instruction set is good, unfortunately there are some major issues at key points in the build that I think could use some attention. First, in step 107, it's unclear where the sub-assembly connects to the frame. The connection point of the pin you insert in step 105 is not visible until step 113, and even then it's basically not possible to insert the other end of the pin into the Technic hole while keeping it attached to the lift arm. I think this needs to be a 4L axle with stop, part 87083, so you can insert it all the way through the spine of the dropship fairly easily. In step 155, the viewing angle makes it hard to see which holes the Technic pins go into, and you can't really tell until step 160. In step 183, there's a sequencing problem because in order to get this Technic brick in place, you have to remove the small subassembly. Steps 179 to 183 should be an independent subassembly that you place on top of these plates when it's finished. Connecting the larger subassemblies, such as the main side panels in steps 243 and the nose section in 289, don't give you any helpful pointers on what the connection points actually are. You kind of just have to use trial and error to see how things line up the best. I think a more detailed explanation would be good for these kinds of connections. Steps 336 to 339 should be an independent subassembly because adding these pieces as shown is very difficult with all the other pieces already in place. Attaching the side clamps in steps 493 and 529 is not possible if you follow the build instructions exactly. The pin interferes with the subassembly, so you have to put the 1x2 lift arm on first and then slide in the 3L axle to secure it to the pivot point. Finally, attaching the wings can be a very frustrating ordeal, and this is where those two extra 2x4 bricks come in handy. In order to prevent the Technic lift arms on the wing from popping off when you try and push the pins into the right holes, place those 2x4 bricks right here in steps 398 and 455. The 2x4 bricks brace the lift arms and prevent them from popping off. I'm honestly not sure how the designer got the wings to attach without these bricks. This took me at least 45 minutes all by itself, and that was after a significant frustration break. So unfortunately, the build experience is by far the least awesome part of this model. I also think these issues limit who should attempt this model to more experienced builders. This model is very sturdy. The integrated handle takes most of the guesswork out of handling it in the first place, but there's really no major areas of weakness elsewhere in the model that I've found. One time I had this small section pop off, which turned out to be a bit of a pain to put back on just because of the connection method, but with minor disassembly of the areas to either side, it ended up not being too bad. Obviously, stability is important for a model built around a fairly significant play feature, so I have to think the designer put some really good thought into this, and it really shows. And while it doesn't come with a stand, the model stands upright just fine, as you've seen throughout the video, on the attachment lift arms, and it also sits nicely on top of the ATTEs, and presumably any other vehicle you can pick up with it. ForgedInLEGO's Dropship is a very impressive model, and I think it should be at the top of your list if you're looking for a dropship in general. And if you're looking for a pseudo replacement for the official set, then there's really no other option I'm aware of that integrates the play features so well. There are definitely models out there that are potentially better display models, especially if you're the type that tries to avoid studs on the exterior, but for the total package, I think this is it. If the designer addresses some of the issues with the build process, which I do think are significant and should be fixed, this model will be accessible to a much wider audience. However, for those willing to muddle through it, then you'll really enjoy this one. Without any substitutions, like I said in the introduction, I was getting 5 stores and $141 without shipping and tax, or about $181 with shipping and tax. With my substitutions, that dropped to 4 stores and $122 without shipping and tax, or about $155 with shipping and tax. And then using LEGO's Pick-a-Brick service, my Pick-a-Brick total was $170. That included tax, but did not include shipping and handling. And then the remaining elements I could get from 4 Bricklink stores for $29 without shipping and tax, or about $55 with shipping and tax, for a total of $215. Now we have to remember that my Pick-a-Brick results are slightly skewed, as LEGO still isn't shipping Pick-a-Brick standard elements to the United States, but this is a surprisingly inexpensive model to begin with, so I actually don't think Pick-a-Brick would make a huge difference all else equal. If you like nice new white parts, which I totally get, the Pick-a-Brick Premium may be worth it to you. Instructions for this model cost $10 US and are available on Rebrickable. There will be a link to where you can buy those in the description below, and in addition to being directly compatible without modification to all of the official LEGO ATTEs, the designer has a YouTube video explaining how to modify the official ATOT as well. I'll also drop that link in the description. Thanks as always for watching my review of ForgedInLEGO's Republic Dropship. If you've built the model, you have something to share that I left out, or have a question about something I didn't cover, please leave them below in the comments. Remember to leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel, or follow me on Instagram if you haven't already, and I hope to see you back next time.